You are looking at the Aswan Dam as we return to Nubia and the island holding the reconstructed temple of Kalabsha to view some of the other Nubian temples that were saved from the inundation. The temples of Dhaka, Aniba, Primus, Maharaka, Araka, and Pademe, ancient Nubian cities, the ruins of which lie under the Nile now, are located here. In the shadow of Great Kalabsha, the Nubian son of Isis, named Mendelus's temple. And here our guide is showing us the Tree of Life carving taken from Bet el Wali. The time of Ramses II. We are now entering the interior of the temple. Some of the interior reliefs still show their ancient actual paint colors. Follow us for an investigation into. Even though these reliefs are not numerous, they are remarkable in that the political conventions of the times were to erase the images of the predecessor and substitute the image with that of the gods is displayed once again. Horus, the falcon symbol of the king, wearing the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt. Isis behind him, the Holy of Holies, the Pharaoh wearing the blue crown, and Amun-Ra wearing the crown of divinity painted in blue in this particular relief. Bestow the Holy of Holies. And here is another depiction of the Pharaoh holding the hair of his enemies and threatening to smite them lest they obey his commands. Pharaoh bearing offerings. Khnum granting the key of life to the Pharaoh wearing the blue war crown. Amun-Ra on his throne. Pharaoh bearing offerings, and Isis suckling an adolescent Horus, giving the nurture of the gods to the Pharaoh. The king giving treasure to Horus. And this is a depiction of Mendelus and Isis in the falcon. The Pharaoh bearing Ma'at. And this is a relief of Isis from the interior of the temple of Isis. Many exquisite female forms are shown here. This is a map showing the ancient cities of Nubia which were inundated by the flood. And this is a modern papyrus painting we brought back from Egypt showing Isis and Ma'at, the goddess of truth. We are now taking a boat for our journey to the island of Philae. The temple of Isis was reconstructed on Anglica Island, and it used to stand 50 miles south of here on the original island of Philae in Nubia. The island we are about to visit is now located a mile or so south of Aswan, the ancient capital of Lower Nubia. This temple has existed in some form or other for at least 6,000 years. Isis is the mythical and magical and perhaps archetypical first queen of Egypt. This temple depicts the history and legends of the people of the Nile and Isis. The reliefs show the pantheon of the gods. You can see the watermarks left from the inundation on the columns. And on the walls of the great pylon, one can see the reliefs showing the pantheon of the Egyptian gods. On the left, you can see that chisel marks have been made in the gods' images, symbolizing the destruction of their future. Isis was the predominant maternal figure in her world, and symbols of femininity abound here, for this, her temple, was her place of homage. We are now approaching Aswan, ancient Philae, capital of Nubia. Here are two Egyptians rowing. Many interesting buildings line the Nile in Aswan, and this is a look at the mansion of Governor Kitchener, which became the old Nubian Museum, which we toured in the third volume of our Reclaiming Our African Heritage series. And this is a look at the new Nubian Museum, which was under construction at the time we visited Aswan last year. And this is modern apartment housing in Aswan. A look at the magnificent mausoleum of the Aga Khan, former husband of Rita Hayworth. And in the foreground, we see the ancient temple of Khnum on legendary Elephantine Island. From the veranda of the old Cataract Hotel, where Agatha Christie is supposed to have written Murder on the Nile, one can see the tourist boats journeying up and down the river. The river is passable for about a mile here until you run into the lower and upper Aswan Dams. But Aswan has been inhabited for at least 10,000 years, for Upper Egypt was inhabited before the Delta region dried out. The ancient temple of Khnum, whose ruins we are looking at now, is one of the oldest temples in all of Egypt. In fact, Khnum is said to be the god who molded human beings from clay on his potter's wheel.
This is a statue of Amenemhet II from the Louvre Museum. These are New Kingdom materials dating back around 1500 BC. This wall depicts the exploits of Pharaoh Thutmose III. It actually talks about his conquest of various nations in the north, Palestine, Syria, Arabia, and the south in Nubia, and details the tribute and the booty that he obtained in raiding and or taxing those areas. And this fresco stone carving was taken from Elephantine Island and depicts Hatshepsut and Thutmose III of the 18th dynasty. This inscription reads that Hatshepsut and or the 18th dynasty would rule for 1,000,000 years. A statue of Amun-Ra built in the days of Tutankhamun, 18th dynasty, 1340, Isis and Horus.